The fluorescent lights of Sterling & Co.'s annual gala hummed like a dying wasp. I stood near the champagne fountain, adjusting my tie for the third time, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. My wife, Clara, was laughing. Not just laughing, glowing. Her head was tilted back, her hand resting lightly on my boss's arm. Richard Sterling, CEO, billionaire, and the man currently making my wife's eyes sparkle, in a way they hadn't for me in years. Richard was everything I wasn't, effortlessly charismatic, silver-haired at 50 but built like a god, with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. He'd built Sterling & Co. from scratch. I'd worked there for 7 years, clawing my way up from junior analyst to senior VP of finance. I was good at my job, respected, but next to Richard, I always felt like a shadow. Clara and I had been married for 10 years. High school sweethearts. She was my rock, or so I thought. Lately, though, things had felt off, distant, conversations were transactional. Intimacy was rare. I blamed stress, my long hours, her new pottery business. But tonight, watching her with Richard, a cold dread seeped into my bones. Her laugh was too loud, too bright. She touched his sleeve again when he leaned in to whisper something. His eyes lingered on her lips a fraction too long. My heart hammered against my ribs. I walked over, forcing a smile. "Having fun, Clara?" She jumped, startled, then gave me a bright, brittle smile. "Michael!" Richard was just telling me about his trip to the Maldives. Sounds divine, doesn't it? Richard's smile was smooth, unbothered. "Michael, excellent work on the Q3 projections. Truly stellar." He clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture that felt proprietary. "Clara's a delight. You're a lucky man." "Thanks, Richard," I mumbled, my throat tight. Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. She turned back to him almost immediately. "So, scuba diving?" "I've always wanted to try," I excused myself, needing air. I spent the next hour hovering near the buffet, my appetite gone, my eyes glued to them. They moved together like a well-rehearsed dance, a shared joke here, a lingering glance there. At one point, Richard guided her to the dance floor with a hand on the small of her back. My back. They swayed to a slow jazz number, talking intimately, their faces inches apart. Clara looked captivated, radiant, the way she used to look at me. The drive home was suffocatingly silent. Clara stared out the window, humming softly. "Richard's fascinating, isn't he?" she finally said, her voice light. "So accomplished, so present." "Present?" I echoed, gripping the steering wheel. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Oh, nothing." She sighed, a hint of irritation in her tone. "Just that he really listens, you know? Makes you feel like the most important person in the room." The implication hung heavy in the air. Unlike me, I didn't sleep that night. The image of them dancing, her hand on his arm, his eyes devouring her, played on a relentless loop. The next few weeks were a special kind of hell. Clara started mentioning Richard constantly. Richard said the gallery downtown has a new exhibit. Richard recommended this amazing winery. Richard thinks my pottery has real commercial potential. It was always Richard. And she started dressing differently. More carefully, more provocatively, even for grocery runs. Silky blouses, skirts that hugged her hips just so. She'd never put that much effort in for me lately. Then came the texts. I saw them by accident. Her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. The screen lit up. Richard, the preview. Can't stop thinking about that laugh. Coffee tomorrow? My treat. My blood ran cold. I didn't confront her. Cowardly, I know. But the thought of her denial, her twisting it into my insecurity, felt unbearable. Instead, I started watching, waiting. The coffee happened. She told me she was meeting a girlfriend for brunch. I drove past the cafe Richard favored. There they were, outside at a small table. Richard was leaning forward, his hand covering hers on the table. Clara was smiling, leaning into him. It wasn't just coffee, it was a date. Work became torture. Richard called me into his office more often. Praise for my work became laced with subtle digs. "Michael, fantastic job on the merger docs. Almost as impressive as Clara's new vase. She's incredibly talented." He'd say it with a smile, but his eyes held a challenge. A knowledge. He knew I knew. He was flaunting it. Colleagues started whispering. "Did you see Sterling and Mrs. Henderson at the gala?" They looked cozy. He's been spending a lot of time mentoring her, hasn't he? The humiliation was a physical weight. Every meeting, every email exchange with Richard felt like walking through a minefield. I was drowning in paranoia and shame. The breaking point came during a critical board meeting. I was presenting the annual budget. Richard sat at the head of the table, radiating power. Halfway through my presentation, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a slow, private smile spreading across his face. He typed a quick reply, then looked up, his gaze locking with mine. The smile didn't waver. It was a smile of possession, of victory. He knew whatever was on that phone was about Clara. and he wanted me to know it. My voice cracked. My meticulously prepared slides blurred before my eyes. I stammered through the rest of the presentation, feeling the pitying, curious stares of the board members. Richard's smile never faltered. He'd broken me, right there, in the room where I'd once commanded respect. I walked out of that meeting, went straight to my office, packed my personal belongings into a single, cardboard box. A framed photo of Clara and me on our honeymoon, a mug that said "World's Okayest Analyst," a stress ball shaped like a dollar sign. My hands shook as I typed my resignation letter, short, professional, no explanation. Just 2 weeks' notice. I emailed it to HR and Richard. Then I walked out of Sterling & Co. for the last time. The weight of my career, 7 years of ambition, sacrifice, and hard work feeling as light and meaningless as dust. Clara was furious when I got home. "You what? You quit?" Without talking to me? "Michael, what were you thinking?" "I was thinking I couldn't work for a man who's sleeping with my wife." The words exploded out of me, raw and ugly. Clara recoiled as if slapped. "Sleeping with me? Michael, that's insane. We're just friends." He's been supportive of my pottery. Friends don't text about wanting to hear your laugh. Friends don't hold hands over coffee. Friends don't look at each other the way you two looked at the gala. I was shouting now, weeks of pent-up rage and hurt erupting. "He humiliated me, Clara, every single day." "And you let him? You encouraged it." "It's not like that," she yelled back, tears welling in her eyes. "You're paranoid, insecure. Richard is just a confident, charming man. Maybe if you were a little more like that like him." I cut her off, incredulous. "You want me to be like the man who's actively trying to steal my wife? Who took pleasure in destroying me at work?" "I didn't ask you to quit," she screamed. "You threw away your career, our financial security, over your own jealousy. You're acting like a child." "Jealousy?" I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Clara, he won. He took my job, my dignity, and he's taking you. And you're handing yourself over on a silver platter." I quit because I couldn't breathe in that toxic environment anymore. I quit because staying would have killed me. The fight raged for hours. Accusations flew, denials, deflections. She called me impulsive, irrational, weak. I called her naive, selfish, blind. The word divorce was hurled once by her in the heat of the moment. It landed like a bomb. The fallout was swift and brutal. My family was divided. My dad: "Son, you can't just quit a job like that. Think of your future." My mom: "Clara would never cheat. You're overreacting." My sister: "Mike, if you felt that humiliated, maybe it was the right call." But wow, my former colleagues were worse. The pitying looks when I bumped into them at the store. The whispers. Threw away a 6-figure job because his wife smiled at the boss. Must have been pretty insecure to begin with. Richard's reputation, of course, remained untarnished. Sterling & Co.'s stock dipped slightly on the news of my departure, then rebounded. Life went on. Without me. Clara moved out a week later. She's staying with her friend, Lisa. She texts occasionally. "We need to talk. You're being ridiculous. Richard says you're welcome back if you apologize." That last one sent me into a rage spiral. She still won't admit anything. Still claims it's all in my head. But the distance between us feels permanent now. I sit in our empty living room, my empty living room now, staring at the wall. Did I overreact? Was I just a jealous fool who threw away everything because my wife found another man charming? Or was I a man pushed to the brink, forced to choose between his sanity and a soul-crushing job where his boss was openly cuckolding him? Richard won. He got me out of his company. He might even get Clara. But in quitting, I reclaimed something. My self-respect. I refused to be a pawn in their game. I refused to swallow my pride and watch them destroy me piece by piece. Was it impulsive? Absolutely. Was it career suicide? Probably. But staying felt like a slower, more painful death. So AITA, for quitting my high-paying, prestigious job because my wife flirted with my boss, for choosing my mental health over financial security in a toxic environment, for refusing to be humiliated day after day. I lost my job, my marriage is crumbling, and my reputation is in tatters. But I still have my dignity. For now, that has to be enough.